Hello and welcome to this episode of Rise of Humanity. I am your host, Chris Karamaya, and today I'm joined by my guest, Mira Kelley, and we will be discussing the nature of past lives. Mira is a transformation coach and author of the book Beyond Past Lives, What Parallel Realities Can Teach Us About Relationships, Healing and Transformation. She works passionately to help people improve their lives today through working with past life regression. So we've got lots to talk about on the show today. So let's get started. Mira, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me. It's such a joy to talk to you.
You too. Thank you so much. So just to begin with, I mean, you were working as a corporate lawyer originally before doing the work you are now. I mean, tell us about that because it's such a huge contrast.
Yeah, so I was a corporate attorney for a while there, and I was working in a large law firm doing securities work, mergers and acquisitions, that kind of corporate work. And it was very intense and, very engaging. And while doing all of that, I also, in my own personal life, developed a very painful physical condition. And it was a condition that I tried to manage using the normal approach of what is usually offered by therapy and physical therapy, and taking a lot of pills and constantly having adjustments on my teeth and changing my all that was offered and suggested by my therapist and also by my dentist, and none of that was working. So after a whole year of this, I was told that I need to learn to either live with severe chronic pain for the rest of my life, or I needed to have an operation. And the operation seemed so senseless to me. It just didn't make sense. Why would you break one thing to heal another?
Mm-hmm.
And it was about breaking my jaw in order to heal the inflammation of the muscles around the jaw. And so it just didn't make any sense. And it was in this moment of desperation and needing a solution that would work. I remembered reading about past life regression as a kid. I remember doing a regression when I was much younger, when I regressed myself out of curiosity. And I decided, you know what, let me see if this would work, right? I was just so desperate for an answer. And lo and behold, it did. And after experiencing another lifetime where I saw myself as the slave who was caught and trapped in this place of powerlessness. He had this huge metal collar around his neck, and his freedom was so limited. I had such a cathartic experience seeing this other lifetime that the next morning as Mira, I woke up and the pain was completely gone. And just like that, miraculously overnight, I was healed. And this sparked so much interest in me. I wanted to read every book on past life regression. I wanted to go to as many workshops as I could. I wanted to study with whomever I could. And of course, as you can imagine, I wanted to practice on all my friends and family, right? Because I knew this worked for me, so it had to work for them too, right?
Yeah.
And so eventually, over time, I transitioned fully to doing this work. And I have never looked back. It's so extraordinarily fulfilling to be able to impact people's lives in a huge way every day. And the miracle story that I told you is not just my story. I hear that from so many clients. So it's really a joy to be able to share the wisdom and the power held in past life regression with your listeners.
Yeah, it's great to be able to talk about this because it's such a powerful thing. But I mean, so just to clarify, it was something that's been with you a long time. It wasn't like you had this massive shift and awakening, and then you suddenly discovered past life regression. It's been with you since childhood.
It was, but at the same time, it wasn't, right? Because, I mean, think about it. Just like any other normal kid, I was more interested in kids stuff up until years later when it honestly felt like all of a sudden I remembered something that was long forgotten. So
Right.
it's not like, meanwhile, I was reading every book on personal growth and development. Maybe it would have been helpful if I did. Maybe I would not have developed the physical condition, right? But no, it was there as an awareness, but not until I tapped into it again.
Okay. So, for the listeners, I mean, it's I suppose the name's quite self-explanatory, really. But could you just tell us what actually is past life regression?
Oh, absolutely. So it's a process that allows people to connect with other lifetimes they have lived. And it's just as easy to connect with past lives as it is to connect with future lives. And so we do that for the purpose of bringing emotional and physical healing to the person, for them to understand whatever the challenge in their life at the moment. And what I love about regression is that it can be used on anything, whatever the person is going through in the moment. They're able to address it using this tool. Whether the question is, what is my purpose? Why am I here on earth? What should I do in this relationship? Why do I keep on dating the same person or marrying the same person? Why did I get born into this family? I feel like such an alien, like an outcast. I don't belong. Then why the trauma that I received, and went through as a child, brought on by my parents? Why this physical illness? Why this challenge with money? Whatever the question is, past life regression is such an extraordinary way for people to get an understanding and healing, and then that becomes a path of personal growth on its own.
Yes, very, very interesting. Yeah, very powerful. I completely get what you're saying. So, in terms of the process of past life regression, I mean, is it you're connecting to a higher version of yourself, your higher self, which contains all of the knowledge, and you're essentially bringing information from the past to help you in the present? Is that kind of what the process looks like?
Yeah, so the person experiences it very much like meditation, right? Very much,
Okay.
it's very meditative, very, very easy to get into. Everybody can do it. Nothing, nothing jarring, nothing uncomfortable, very easy as a process. But in terms of the technicality of how we connect and receive all of that information, I believe the person connects with the soul, with their oversoul, which has an awareness and understanding of all these lifetimes. And from then they're able to integrate and tap into, if you will, go up to go down kind of thing, right? Imagine
Yeah.
the process, tap into any lifetime. And because time is simultaneous, it's just as easy to connect with a future life as it is to connect with a past life. And of course, we also need to mention that we have had not just human lifetimes, right? We've had lifetimes as other species here on Earth, other dimensions, aliens, angels, other beings altogether. So it really, the possibilities of what the person can experience are really limitless. But what's so beautiful about it is that it's always most appropriate to where the person is right now and what will serve them to help them move forward and to help them understand.
Yes. And so, I mean, when working with people, how spiritually evolved does a person need to be in order to be a fit for this kind of work?
Oh gosh, what a great question. I really love your questions, by the way. They're so
Thank you.
different and so unique. This is really a joy for me. And so it's not about how evolved the person is at all. That's why I always tell people, try, just give it a try. It doesn't even matter where you are, because the person has a soul right there. They have God within them. They have all that is the divine within them. And so that divine is always steering them, always moving them towards their greatest fulfillment. And so I trust that connection, and I trust that the person will always be shown what they need. And the answers are always so appropriate to where they are. It's not going to be something that is impossible for them to assimilate and understand, because the understanding is already there, right? The answer is always contained within the question. In other words, the solution is always within the problem. So whatever the person is going through, their soul has set it up as a question so they can resolve it, but the solution is already contained within the question.
Yeah. So it's almost like that a higher self really is just waiting for us to come and ask the question and find the
Yeah.
answer. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and all you have to do is kind of just be open and tap into that higher wisdom. Yeah.
And that's it. That
Yeah.
truly is it.
Yeah. Awesome. So, I mean, for people who are interested in past life regression, I mean, is it something that you can do just kind of out of curiosity, or is it important to have a very focused intent before you begin a session?
So I work with people who do both. Some people come simply out of curiosity, and I love it because they have an open mind and they're ready to explore. And other people come with a specific question. I'm having trouble in my marriage. I have this restless leg syndrome, or help me understand what is the emotional issue behind my Parkinson's. Why did I develop it? Whatever the issues, from the smallest to the biggest, from just simple curiosity to whatever the person is going through. And I encourage both. In other words, whatever's on the person's mind, I know that it'll serve them.
Yes.
And because they're always moved, right? There's always a reason. There's always that nudge within. That's why I say to people, whatever your reason is, just trust it and explore it, because there must be an answer in this for you, guidance, something for you to benefit from.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if people are ending up doing a session with you, they're not really there by coincidences. They're there for a reason.
Absolutely. Even if it's just a curiosity. Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. And you mentioned earlier about finding our life purpose. I mean, how do you define kind of life purpose, and is it different from the lessons that we are to learn during a lifetime? Are they kind of one and the same thing?
I think the lessons that we're here to learn, I talk about them as themes, right? I think those are wrapped into our life purpose. So when people say to me, what is my purpose? I give them this answer that is kind of like twofold. And so the bigger purpose we all have, that is all shared for all of us, is the purpose of us learning how to handle mental energy. Mm-hmm. In other words, us emotionally learning that our thoughts, our emotions, and our expectations really create our experiences, our reality, so that we learn not to be hypnotized by the external world, but to know, not just intellectually, right? Kind of like that dinner conversation or joking amongst friends. Yeah, I create my reality. No, really owning it, really believing it, really feeling that you can step out of the normal day-to-day understanding of life and not be hypnotized by circumstances, and be able to take a hold of our emotions, our fears, our worries, and to channel them into the direction we want to move into. So that's the bigger purpose we all share. And the individual purpose will always be revealed through our gifts and talents, the challenges we have in expressing those gifts and talents. All that comes through us being able to serve as who we are. And so that's why I say to people, what is it that you truly enjoy doing? What can you get lost into? What gives you that sense of such deep, sweet fulfillment that can make you sing and fly so high, as if you're on a cosmic high without needing to take any drugs? That feeling of like, yes, I feel like I'm contributing, I'm changing people's lives. What I do matters. What I do is so important. I can do it for hours. I don't even care if I get paid. I'll still do it because it's so meaningful. And so those gifts and talents, we usually discount them, right? We usually say, oh, well, who wants this? How will I make money doing this? Nobody will approve, that kind of stuff. But the truth is that that's where the theme is, right? That's where the unraveling is.
Yeah, it's awesome. And one of the big life lessons I know I've got is expression, and expression of the voice. So it's no coincidence for me that I'm doing a podcast now, because that's one of my big lessons. I'm here to learn, and it's definitely it's something challenging, and putting yourself out there and your voice out there. But I can feel the benefits of it, and I can certainly understand as well. You talk about this overall purpose I mean, that we all have to learn to kind of master this mental energy, because that's kind of, you know, as much as we are here to, you know, experience these wonderful emotions like joy and love, and we're also here to learn. And it's kind of the way I see it is, you know, it's a physical experience where we have come to learn how to master that energy.
And master is the perfect word.
Yeah, I noticed actually you, I don't know if you've looked into his work much, but I noticed you had a endorsement of your book from William Buhlman.
Yes.
And he's I've read a few of his books, and he's big. I mean, he's very much promoting that we are here in this physical experience to learn how to master energy.
Bill Buhlman is one of my most beloved mentors and friends, and somebody I constantly learn from. And it's so wonderful that we have his energy as something in common.
Yeah. He's big inspiration for me. He's helped me a lot in my development. So.
And you know what's so interesting? What he teaches about out-of-body experiences and how to connect with the multidimensional nature of our reality, and naturally learn how to master energy and to move through experiences and dimensions. That's really the reason why him and I are so united and see and have such a shared vision, is because that's really how I see past life regression as well. I don't see it as just as a process that I guide people through. I see it as a technique that allows you to understand about the bigger tapestry of your soul, to tap into the multidimensional nature of your experience. Because once you, like, here is an example, right? And once you experience and understand that you're not just this body, this person, but instead you've been other bodies, other people, other races, other cultures, other experiences, the perception of the world changes. Your understanding of who you are changes so dramatically. You start seeing the world so differently, and you start realizing that you don't end at the end of your skin. Kind of thing, right? That you have so much more that you're intermingled and entangled with out there in the universe. So that, you know, that's why he's somebody who is a constant source of inspiration and just joy for me.
Yeah, and one of the things I find understanding this this work is just kind of on a, I mean, it sounds like a small thing, but just thinking about it gives me a huge sense of relief. Like I mean, we build up so much pressure on ourselves that I need to achieve so much in such a short amount of time. And when you realize that I've been doing it over and over again, it's kind of just take a deep breath and know that everything's fine. I've got plenty of time, and I don't need to feel overwhelmed or panicked about anything.
Very true. And you know what's so interesting, that moment of enlightenment, it's not about time at all, right? It's not about going through all these lifetimes and building up to some big understanding. All it takes is a split second, because, you know, miracles happen in the space between time, right? They happen out of time. We just get to experience them on the other end of it, right? Yeah. And so that moment of understanding and enlightenment that we're looking for, that moment of truly stepping outside of our story and creating a new story, a new life, a new experience, is something that truly takes but a second. And it doesn't come if we put up pressure on ourselves. Actually, it slows it down.
Right, yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, in terms of learning individual life lessons, I mean, it seems as though, I mean, obviously it can't be coincidence, but that we incarnate so perfectly into the exact right environment we need to be in to learn our lessons, and the right family, the right parents. And I mean, have you any insight into that through the work you've done?
Yes. So not only do children pick their parents, but parents pick their children, right? It's a mutual process. And so the community, the environment, the mental beliefs the family holds, the way they are, is the perfect setup for the soul, for the child to come in, because they need that box, that environment, right? It's like the setup of the problem that will limit them, so they need to break out of it, and in order to, much like rising through the chakras, right? We start with the first chakra, where it's all about belonging to the tribe and being part of the family. Then we start learning about our needs being met. Then we find our individual power in the third center. Then we break free through forgiveness and love in our heart center. Then we start expressing our unique identity in our fifth chakra. Then we go into seeing the world as a whole new possibility, and then we reach that place of enlightenment, connecting with the divine. So that's basically the journey we go through as we pick our family too, right? Mm-hmm. We choose to be defined by them, because there will be the perfect setup for us to just bump against, right? To need to move that creative growth in order to define who do we want to be, in order to experience and learn our creative powers through the limitations they will give us.
Yeah, I think that kind of just, I mean, for people, especially who maybe look back at their childhood and really resent their parents, it kind of completely turns that on its head. And maybe you could look at it in terms of they were there to help me.
Very true. And I always tell people, you know what, on a soul level, this parent who abused you so badly, or neglected you, or abandoned you, is nothing but your favorite soul partner kind of thing. You know, they're part of your soul group, and they said, okay, this is going to be hard, and I don't want to do this, but I really love you so dearly, and I so much want this growth for you and for myself, so let's do this, right? So on a soul level, they're your best friend.
That's awesome. I'm curious, I mean, if you've looked at this during your work, you look into the world and you see people maybe who are causing pain and violence and maybe sadness and misery in other people's lives, when they are out of the physical world in the multi-dimensions, are they very much again in touch with their divinity, and then they come back to earth, and then they kind of take on this lower level of consciousness where maybe they seem to not contribute to society in such a positive way, but is it always on a soul level they are, a divine being?
I believe so, absolutely. Even though here we forget the light of ourselves and the light of source, and it's such a forgetful place that the ego becomes overdeveloped, and the ego can go in really scary places when it feels that it's all on me, and it's me against the world, and the world is not a safe space, not a safe place. And so the soul basically is completely, the signal that the inner self, the soul, is sending, is completely being muted and not received, because the ego just is so overdeveloped. And yet I see that is just a soul learning, right? I know that they're causing pain, and yet those others who are coming into contact with the pain the first person is inflicting are also there for all their own reasons, right? They're no victims, even though of course we speak about victims and so on. No situation ever has a clear, just haphazard, circumstance-based victim. The person who is there experiencing the pain being inflicted upon them is doing that and getting something out of it, right? Whether teaching the world, whether teaching themselves a lesson, but it's never just such a, the way we talk about it as the perpetrator, the victim, because the perpetrator is also a victim in their own right? They're victimized by their own environment, because hurt people. And they too come from a place of just looking to connect and looking to experience love, but are doing it in such a messed up way that it's not giving them that, right? Instead, it's creating division and perpetuating the cycle of hurt and pain. And yet they're also victims in their own right.
Yes, definitely. So in terms of learning life lessons, what's the importance of, I mean, I suppose it depends on your level of self-awareness, but what's the importance of learning a lesson rather than, I mean, is it possible to squash a lesson down and resist it? Because it's something that I've kind of looked into and investigating, that this idea that every time you fail to learn a lesson because you avoid it or you turn away from it, it will come back the next time with an even greater degree of intensity. Is that something that you've found?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, it's not like there's somebody in heaven like God keeping a scoreboard, having a scoreboard and keeping score of how well you do. It's really you wanting to learn, right? Your soul wanting to learn. And so if you don't go the full distance this time around, the soul is going to be like, okay, let's try again, but let's try it from this angle and let's see how this does it for us. I had a session just a couple of days ago with this lovely woman who said, I'm doing this just simply out of curiosity. And I'm in a really good place in my life. I cut my mother off. I'm not talking to her because she was so mean. I divorced my husband a few years back. I'm raising my son, and we have a good relationship. I met somebody several years after divorcing my husband, but he was living in a different country. So it got to a point whether I had to move or he had to move here. And so I chose not to do that. So she was like, my life is very simple. I have no baggage, right? And I'm listening to her and I'm smiling because it sounded all beautiful. But guess what her higher self said? The higher self said, listen, get busy living life. You're basically so afraid of being hurt and connecting to people that you're just avoiding life right now. Yeah. Get busy, reach out to people, love, open your heart. You're thinking it's a good thing you don't have baggage. But what you're doing is you're really just placating yourself and avoiding life. And so whenever I want to tell our listeners, you find yourself in the midst of emotional upheaval and lots of stuff happening, and you're just wishing you can just escape someplace like another planet, or be done with this life, or go to a monastery. I'm here to tell you that this is your soul going through its initiation, and you're learning, and this is the best training ground. And your soul is sitting and saying, finally they're getting someplace wonderful, they're finally learning.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I can definitely resonate with that message of opening your heart and not being afraid to live life. I mean, it is obviously everyone faces fears and stuff, but I mean, I think relationships is a quite a common area which maybe people don't learn the lesson that they're supposed to learn over the years, and eventually they keep attracting the same relationship, and eventually it gets to the point where it's so intense that they kind of, there's no option but to learn the lesson. I mean, imagine you've done work with relationships with people quite a lot.
Oh, tons of it. That's the point where they end up in my office and they say, what am I to do? Because at first we always the first few big loves in our lives that we have, and that can happen when you're 7 years old, or it can happen when you're 20. No matter. What matters is that at first we're always attracted to a person who will kind of be like a continuation of our learning at home. In other words, they will push the same emotional buttons, and that's when we start becoming awake and alert to our soul's path, right? To what we need to learn. And we start thinking, oh my God, this is how I was raised. This is how things cross connect. I understand the issues. And so for people who are alert and aware, that first relationship, or those first couple of relationships, are basically that, right? That the continuation of the lesson. And some people make it through and are able to create and develop an exceptional, are able to resolve things and are able to create a whole new deal with their partner. Some people don't, and they break up, and hopefully with the next relationship, you really get to learn and experience. But I'm here to tell you that it's all doable. You are capable of having that blissful, joyful experience of being with a partner. And that's why your soul is guiding you towards it. That's why you're looking for it. It's just a matter of clearing the debris along the way.
Yeah.
And it takes a little bit of work. I'm not going to tell you that I'm just going to give you, a magic spell or a pill. And it takes emotional work, but that's okay. That's why we're here. Like we were saying, that's the mastery. And once that is complete and works through, things open up in a whole different way.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I just got this thought. I mean, say for example, someone keeps attracting, say, a relationship which makes them feel abandoned, for example, and they keep attracting that relationship over and over again. But if they look possibly, I mean, it's just hypothetical, but if they look back in their life to their childhood and they can't find any reason why they should feel this way, is it possible that then they should go and look at a past life? Or if they've experienced, say, abandonment in a past life, would that always be, say, replicated in their childhood, and then it will go on into their adult life?
So because time is simultaneous, that means that people have access to lifetimes where they have been abandoned, but also lifetimes where they have been extraordinarily joyful, supported by a community. Because think about it. So in order to learn about an issue, a soul is not just going to pick a lifetime where it's happy, right? It's also going to pick lifetimes where the challenge was viewed from different points of view. And so there's the fullness of the experience, right? And so people can definitely connect with that in other lifetimes, get a deeper understanding. But ultimately, here's what it comes down to, the issue of abandonment. It comes down to the understanding that a person will never be out of love, ever, ever, ever. Right? It comes down to the understanding that there is always more love. And if we don't limit how it needs to come or how it needs to be, and if we don't keep on holding on to the story of not being wanted, the love will always be there. And it's a journey that, it's, gosh, I can say so much about it. So many of my clients struggle with that issue of abandonment, that it's so interesting to sit and think about it. But ultimately, the solution comes down to you deciding that you're lovable and worthy, and to really find safety in that place of vulnerability. Because here's something: if people who have been abandoned in relationships are truly honest, they will say that they had reservations about that person, but it wasn't acceptable for them to be the one who leaves, because they're loyal, they're responsible, right? We carry that responsibility thing everywhere we go. So we feel responsible that we never leave. We are responsible for how they feel. So if people are honest, most of the time they'll say it just wasn't working for me, but I was willing to put up with it because we had children, or because of, fill in the blank. Yeah. And once they're willing to own their piece of the puzzle, they're stop seeing themselves as a victim that somebody else keeps on doing that to them. That's when they start owning their power, and that's when they start saying, I was just intentionally setting it up and waiting for them to leave because I just wasn't acceptable for me to. And then you start owning your power. Then you start saying, wait a minute, so my thoughts and expectations and beliefs really matter. They really create the experience I'm here to create. So then, if that's the case, then I need to really start believing what I want to believe, that I'll always have love in my life, that I'll never be out of love. And I cannot control who comes and goes, but that's not my problem. My problem is not to control a person. That's not my goal in life. My goal in life is to control my inner emotional environment. And if I know that I'll always have love, and I'm counting on it, and I expect it, and I can bet on it, then the universe will always provide, right? The universe is a benevolent, abundant place. If it's not this person, it'll be somebody else. And I'm not going to hold on to the expression of that love. I'm going to just trust that it's going to fulfill me in the best possible way. And so, and once you understand, through a past life or through that kind of an inner journey and exploration, the lesson, the piece of the puzzle for you, that's when you add those 2 extra steps that I was talking about on top of it in order to reason yourself into a whole new experience, right? To move yourself into a new dimension, into a new experience.
Wow, that's incredible advice. Anyone that's struggling with relationships, definitely listen to that. That's amazing. So what's the best way to start experimenting with past life regression? I mean, I know obviously I'm sure you share about it a lot in your book, Beyond Past Lives, but is it something people can experiment with on their own, or do you recommend finding an experienced practitioner such as yourself?
And so I recommend both, right? And depending on what the person wants to do, people can very easily work with me. All it takes is you sending me an email and saying, I want to work with you. And I work with people from all over the world. So you being in the UK or anywhere else in the world and me being in the States makes no difference. Mm-hmm. And so people can just reach out to me and email me at info@mirakelley.com and work with me. Or they can just come to my website, again, just mirakelley.com, and pick one of my regression recordings. I have recordings focused on specifically working through relationships, through money issues. I have some programs that incorporate past life regression, so those are definitely worth checking out in terms of health issues or, again, money or relationship issues. So whatever works for the person, right? When you do it with a recording, obviously it's going to be more general, more brief, but still people get exceptional results. When you work with me, it's going to be so much more in depth and tuned towards exactly what you need. So it's faster, it's more profound, it's deeper, much like anything else that you do, specifically for yourself. So whichever works for people. Obviously, I recommend working with a practitioner working with me because I just know how quickly I move people through stuff and how quickly I help them resolve issues. So, that versus being a little more on your own. So whichever works for people.
Yeah, awesome. So there's one last area that I wanted to talk about because it's not something I've done any kind of research into before. So I find it quite fascinating. That's future lives. I mean, is it set in stone? Is it just intention? Is it possible that a future life might not manifest? I mean, could you just talk a bit on this area?
Oh, absolutely. So the future is definitely not set in stone. I have heard so many different versions of the future of humanity, the future of, people. So every choice creates a new reality, right? Every choice creates a whole slew of new possibilities to be explored and experienced. And the soul is going to go through all of them. So this is where the multidimensional understanding of reality kicks in, and where it gets to be just so mind-boggling and so interesting to ponder. But in terms of what a person will experience during regression, they're going to connect with the version of a future life that is most appropriate for where they are, and that will give them the answers that they need right now. So that's how that selection happens.
Wonderful. So there's a couple of questions that I like to ask, I guess, on every interview. And the first one is, what would be your best tip for people who are looking to lift their level of consciousness?
Gosh, what a good question. I think it's really becoming aware that you are more than your body and you're more than your life. It's really becoming aware of the multidimensional nature of your existence, because that is a trigger that brings you into a greater awareness of your power as the creator of your life, and greater experience of the mystery of the divine, and greater ability to handle and manipulate experiences and create greater miracles in your life. Because remember, miracles are not something extraordinary, they're the norm, but it will become the norm for you when you're willing to handle that kind of energy and bring it into your experience, right? And so that's why I advocate so strongly for the experience of other lifetimes through past life regression, because past life regression triggers the understanding of the multidimensional nature of reality and existence. And so it becomes a way of truly spiritual growth, because when people do a past life regression, they always first do it to heal, right? The emotional, the physical, the financial, whatever the challenge, they always do it first to heal and understand. And then that becomes a tool of exploration, them knowing more, studying more, having that personal experience of the divine.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. Thank you so much for that. And the second question is, what would be your best advice on how people can contribute to the rise of humanity?
Oh, that's such an easy one. By being your best self, by living your greatest life. Because when you take care of yourself, when you vibrate at a place of wholeness and love and forgiveness, when you are more integrated within yourself, in other words, your higher self, your soul is not something that, feels unreachable. Instead, you feel that you're one whole being. Instead, where your ego becomes more of an expression, of a channel, of an arm of your higher self, as opposed to the ego that needs to control and predict and manipulate, then you really are the divine walking amidst people, right? Then you really are that earth angel. And so when you're that person, you are able to truly be there for others and help them in much more powerful ways. And you're able to serve by example, to teach them they don't need to suffer. They don't need to keep on carrying the same emotional baggage a decade after decade and a lifetime after lifetime. You truly become manifest, an embodiment of what's possible for others, and your presence alone raises the consciousness of humanity.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, I mean, you mentioned your websites earlier, but you just share that again for the listeners, where we can find out more about you and your work.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so easy to find. All you got to do is Google my name, MiraKelley.com, or, just connect with me on your favorite social media channel. I'm out there everywhere. And so reach out to me either through social media or go on my website and just send me an email and see how we can work together. I'm here to serve you. And if you're tuning into my energy, if you're tuning into this interview, if the stuff I'm talking about feels right to you, then it's definitely, a nudge for you to say, let's see, what else can I learn and gain from Mira, from working with Mira.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. So that's about all today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this awesome knowledge and wisdom with the listeners today, Mira.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really loved our time together.
Thank you. So that is all for today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. It's been full of wonderful knowledge and wisdom. And be sure to check out Mira's work, her website and her book, and consider working with her if you want to take your life to the next level. So that is all for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'll catch you all next time. Take care. Bye-bye.